And now, part 2 of the Demeere podcast.
As you were talking about that, I was thinking about Rory Miller's Meditation on Violence, which I've had sitting on my shelf for years. I've read bits and pieces of it, but the part that stood out and I connected to whilst you were talking was that violence is a beast of a subject. I mean, you're talking about like the actual technicalities behind violence, in my opinion, is a very minor piece. You've got the psychological piece, the sociological makeup of a criminal, right? You're talking psychology. You're talking oh my gosh, there's so many different layers to violence, right? And I think martial artists need to really at least study some of this, because that's part of the puzzle that you're talking about, right?
It's one of those things that the more you study, the more you understand it. You don't really know much, and if you come to any other conclusion, I think you're delusional,
right?
Or you are only scratching the surface, and that includes me when I was younger. Right now, after so many years of training and having experienced a bunch of stuff, I'm a lot more cautious in what I say than I used to be when I was younger and didn't have as much experience. Because now I understand just how much more I don't know or don't understand. Or let me give you an example. If I don't know Ontario, you live in Ontario, right?
Ontario, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, I have no idea what life is like over there. I'm sure there are rough neighborhoods and bad spots to go to. Okay. So, and I'm sure there's bars there and that there's bouncers working there. Right.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So pick the best bouncer from Ontario where you're at and put him in Brussels in a bad spot.
Right.
How's that going to go?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
Does that guy know how to fight? Sure. Does he know how to handle violence? Yes. But the context is different. There will be similarities. But he's going to have to take some time to figure out, okay, who are the players here? How does this work? Who do I have to watch out for? Who's going to stab me in the back?
Right.
Who looks like there's nothing going on, but he's connected to this and that guy, and so on. And same thing the other way around. Grab the bouncer from Brussels and put him in Ontario, and the guy's going to be messed up if he thinks like it's the same thing. I'll be fine. They just speak a different language. No, that's not how it works. So it's looking at those differences. I think that's interesting, and that's where it's at. And if you look at that, you'll see that there's so much to learn. And like you said from Rory, is that just that it's such a huge subject. I'll give you an example. I distinguish between self-defense and traditional martial arts and combat sports. For me, there are three different things. They overlap, but there's differences. Right. So that's just big combat sports. That's Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, and so on. Okay. There's an interesting book. It's called The Science of Martial Arts Training by Charles Staley, who's a very interesting trainer. And in that book, he wrote something that I think is fundamental, and that is for combat sports. So this is aimed at combat sports. What is the hierarchy of training? How do you structure training? Like, what is important and how much time do you spend on it? And what he wrote in there is kind of like a pyramid. The bottom part is really wide. That's where you spend most of your time. And that's purely physical training. Speed, strength, power, flexibility, all the physical attributes that you need. If you don't have those, you're not going to last 5-minute rounds in the UFC. If you're not in shape, if you're not fast, if you're not strong and explosive, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But UFC champions have more than that.
Yeah.
Muay Thai, Lumpini, stadium champions have more than just those physical attributes. Now we get to the next level of the pyramid, and that's the technical part. So that's, okay, so you throw the leg kick like this, you throw the jab like that, don't lift your elbow because it's going to be, you're going to telegraph the technique, but also it's slower. So all the technical things that make sure that those physical traits from the lower level, you don't waste them. You use them effectively.
Sufficient, yeah.
But that's not enough, because we know a lot of guys in great shape who have awesome technique and they still get beat up. Why?
Yep.
Because they don't have good strategy and tactics, which is next level. Which is, why do you do a technique? Which one do you do? When do you do it? Why not?
Yes.
So strategy and tactics.
Yeah.
And then we get to the top part, and that is, and I have a lot of respect for the guy, and I think he's awesome. But for instance, Uriah Hall in the UFC. Uriah Hall. He just defeated Anderson Silva.
Okay.
Great fighter. One of the guys. He had the most impressive spinning back kick knockout ever. He was one of the first guy to do that in the Ultimate Fighter series. And from everything that I've seen, and I don't know him personally, but from everything that I've seen, and I've seen him talk to, for instance, an interview with Chael Sonnen where he talks about fear, and the stress of the adrenal stress and so on of going into a cage with a guy who wants to basically tear you up. He seems to me to be the guy who has trouble with the top part, which is the psychological and the mental aspect, and that's the top of the training of the pyramid.
Yeah, the mind game.
And, he is usually in great shape. He's got awesome technique. The guy is, I mean, he as a striking specialist, I love his striking. It's really good. Strategy and tactic wise, the fight he did with Anderson Silva was on both those levels really well done. He was very smart in the way he fought Silva. But it's the mental part, the psychological part. I've seen many of his fights in which that you could see him like be afraid to pull the trigger, hesitate, or if he gets resistance, he's like, it's difficult, or he doesn't know how to get started. It's kind of like a diesel engine. He needs to get revved up a little bit first. That's all psychological. Right, so we have physical, technical, strategy and tactics, and psychological, mental on top. So that's the pyramid. All the levels are important, right?
Yeah.
Every single one of those levels, you could write libraries full of books about how to train those.
You're right.
Right? So every single one of them, and we've got them all. Here's a point. That was just combat sports. If we look at self-defense, if we look at traditional martial arts, all those kind of levels are there as well, but you will write completely different books about every single level of those for traditional martial arts and for self-defense.
Yep.
That's how much there is out there.
Yep.
So when somebody says like, this is a great style and that's a bad style and this works and this doesn't work, and I'm like, I understand why you say that. I used to say it too. I think you're wrong though.
Yeah.
But it's not my job to convince you, and good luck with that. I mean, vaya con Dios to your life.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. This is one of the I guess you could say the curses of being a lifelong martial artist is you develop a groove, you reach some sort of a plateau, either physical or conceptual, right? And then you meet somebody that just opens your eyes up, and you're going, oh, damn, there's so much more out there. You know what I mean? And so you have to, I think the only way to be humble and show respect for others is to just understand that, you got to have this growth mindset, right? You got to keep growing and learning and knowing what you need and what your students need, right? And just keep going. So about 10 years ago, I was in this pretty good resort, but the gym was horrible. It was musty. It was like you could smell the humidity in the mold, and the equipment was pretty crappy. But that doesn't stop me. I mean, I always find creative ways to train. So I hung this towel off of a lat pull down machine. I just took off the bar attachment and had the hook there. Took my towel from the hotel and hung it there. And I just started. I pushed it and I just started doing head movement and swinging. I was trapping. I was doing elbows and kicks and this and that. There was this gentleman, pretty buff guy, a European dude, about like maybe 6'2", lean, cut, shreds. I could tell that he was a fighter, and he had some tats and things, and this was fresh in my mind. So he came to me. He's going and he spoke with a really thick accent. He's going you do martial arts? He goes, nice. I train too. And then we were talking and this and that. And he says, I like what you're doing. And this is what I do too. And we were just talking, right? And then your name came up. He goes, I go, where are you from? And he says, I'm from Brussels, right? And I go, oh, cool, Belgium, right? And then he says, yeah, now I can't remember if he was a student of yours or if he trained with you at a seminar, but and I don't remember his name. He told me his name and everything, but this is years and years ago. But I found it cool because that was the time that I came across your stuff. And I was, and so we had a lot to talk about. He spoke highly of you. He says, "Oh, you got to get to know Wim. Come down to Brussels and train with him. He's a great guy. He solid fighter. He's got a lot of full contact experience, and he's cross trained in so many different arts, right?" So put a big smile on my face. I just want to share that with you, man. Share that story. Yeah, it was. I remember it distinctly the time that I met him too. I want to talk to you about Randy's Law.
Yeah.
I find this fascinating, and I connected to it based on what I do here at Karate Unity. Like, one predominant theme here in Karate Unity is cross training, and I firmly believe in cross training, as I think we are more similar than different. But the differences are valid as they inform our similarities. Like, for example, karate striking versus boxing. You've got similar punches. You've got the rotation and the hip torque, etc. But the footwork is different because of the fluid nature and the dynamic, reactionary type of things that we do. But this informs my punching and it helps with my delivery, right? But when I came across Randy's Law, from my little understanding, and to be honest, I didn't really delve deep. I just, when I saw Randy's Law, I saw a Venn diagram there, and I saw you talking about similarities and differences. I was very interested. So I want you to talk to us about Randy's Law. Why is it called Randy's Law, and what is it in your mind?
Yeah. So Randy's Law is the differences are just as important as the similarities. It applies to pretty much everything, I think, but it's mostly when it comes to martial arts and self-defense. It's the field in which I talk about it. But I had somebody, one of my patrons, contact me, and he's a lawyer, and he said, "Yeah, that really works for me too." I'm like, "Okay, right. Good for you. I'm happy." Many years ago on Mark's email list, one of his friends, Randy Brhon, said he was a guy, really interesting guy, very smart, Western sword fighting and also Filipino martial arts. And in the Filipino martial arts, you often start training with a stick. Because it's kind of like a versatile weapon in the sense that to teach you the different angles of attack and techniques, you start with a stick because it's safe. It doesn't hurt necessarily if you miss at first. You don't injure yourself too bad by stabbing yourself with a point. It doesn't have an edge and so on. And you can start having some contact and learn the different angles, techniques, and so on. And once you learn the different angles, for instance, whatever number system that your style uses, you then switch to a machete or a knife, and you notice that it's pretty much the same. And then empty hand, it's the same, right? Okay, here's the thing. The differences between all those different empty hand, stick, machete, heavy weapon, bolo, could be even an axe. It could be a knife, could be hammer, a short knife, could be a longer knife. All the different weapons they use, and they have a lot, right? The differences between each individual weapon are just as important as the similarities. The logo for my site is the crossed sticks you see often in the logos of Kali and Eskrima and so on. Yes. One is a stick and the other one is a machete. And the machete bites into the wood, and that's the difference. If you do your hubut drills, with a stick, okay, switch the sticks to machetes, see what happens, right? You're both using a machete, right? Okay, and then switch. One guy has a stick and the other guy has a machete. See what happens, right? And then sharpen that machete. See what happens. So the sharpened machete will bite into the wood. So the impact that you have, the way you use the stick and the way you use the machete will be slightly different. Overall, when you watch it, it'll look very, very similar. But just because the one has an edge and the other one doesn't, it's going to be very, very different. And that plays a huge difference in how you use the weapon. And that is the example Randy used. And that, for me, that struck me because it resonated with something else that I read in an interview of a Chinese martial arts master who did about, I think, 9 or 10 different styles. And they asked, how can you remember that all? How can you learn that? And he says, don't learn the same thing twice, which is basically saying, what is the same? What is different? What is the same? You already know that. Don't need to learn that anymore. Okay, what's different? That's where it's at, where the differences are. And then for me, the thing is that, okay, why are the differences there? That's the big step. And once you know why, then the actual learning starts. Because then you see, well, there's actually a really good reason why this difference is there. And it influences everything else. Example, I was there in the late 70s and early 80s when it was PKA karate, so full contact karate, boxing gloves and the long pants, the karate gi pants, in a boxing ring doing kickboxing. No leg kicks, right? No kicks below the belt.
Yeah, they couldn't kick,
Right. So then kickboxing became big in Europe, which is pretty much almost exactly the same rules, with one big difference: you could do leg kicks. And I remember reading in the magazines back in the time, the big American champions saying like, yeah, well, everybody's going on and on about the leg kicks from the French guys and the Dutch kickboxers. But you know what? We have the side kick. We can kick over that. And they don't know what's going to hit them. And we know how that ended. And the videos are still on YouTube. They got messed up. They got beaten to a pulp with those leg kicks. One difference in the rules. And everything changed on a technical level.
You're right? Yeah.
And this is a proven fact. This is, I'm not making it up. People can look up all the times that these fights happened. Big one, Rick Roufus against Kiatsongrit, the Thai champion. That's a really big name. Yeah, Roufus was like Roufus, big champion. And that was I think the only time he fought with leg kicks, or the first time he fought with leg kicks, and he got jacked up. I mean. He fought in K1 later on with leg kicks, and he still got messed up with leg kicks there. So my point is that's a combat sport with top athletes, and you change one rule and they get messed up, like really, really bad. Like it's no contest, they're getting beaten up. Okay, transpose that to self-defense.
Yeah.
Where there are so many more differences, so many more unknowns, variables that you cannot control. Is he going to pull a weapon or not? If he's going to pull one, which one is it going to be? Will I be able to see that weapon or not? Is it just him or is it somebody else? Right. If I beat him and he drops down because I knock him out with one punch and he falls and I can run away, that's fine. If I end up on the ground with him and I'm beating him because I'm doing my ground and pound that I learned in the MMA gym, and all of a sudden one of his friends comes up behind me and kicks me in the head and knocks me out. And they stomped me to death. And a friend of mine had that happen, actually, that he got the guy down, ground and pound, and he wakes up in an ambulance because the guy's buddy came up behind him and clocked him and knocked him out. All his teeth gone. His teeth were gone. So point is this, so many variables that make it different from whatever environment that you're used to or that you think is going to happen. That doesn't mean that what you do cannot work there. But why would you risk your life? And because that's what you're doing when you're learning fighting, self-defense, martial arts, and so on. You're betting your life on that. Why would you bet your life on just saying like, no, I can't hear that. That doesn't exist. I only want to do what is over here. And those factors, no, don't talk. I can't hear it. Yeah. It's like, that is childish. And you're betting your life on that. And you're saying like, no, my style's so much better. Yeah. And that's what Randy's law is all about, is like, look at the differences. That's where the true learning is. Because if you only look at the similarities, you will encounter many situations in which one small difference is going to mean the difference between you making it out in one piece and not doing so.
I resonate with that big time. The more I play and touch hands with different people, I really respect what they're doing, because it informs like even though, for example, back to the boxing things, we talked a lot about that today. We've got the same rotational strikes in karate, but boxing is more, they deliver it from a context where it's tighter, right? Everything's contained, as you says, right? Like, you throw the hand back, you can hit here and you can rebound, and like you can, we've got all these motions and kata and forms and things like that, right? But understanding those differences is important, because like it'll help you, like for me, I'm learning how to deliver my hook a little bit better now, and I'm using just little things like stepping off and turning, stepping and turning, kind of like check hook kind of style. I just that type of that I don't have that in karate, so I use it now. I use it in my karate. You know what I mean? That difference has helped me to take what I've got and try to dynamically make it better. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad we talked about that. So we have a lot of friends in common. Ian Abernathy. Let's see who else. I know. Let's see. Ian Abernathy, Chris Wilder. Okay, and we've I've done some work with them too. Chris, I just spoke to him yesterday. We were just chatting. I just wanted to say, hey, what's up? And I was excited to tell him that I'm talking to you. And he brought up this situation called the animal barbecue in the dust pit. He said apparently he grappled with you. Anyway, I just wanted to know about this whole animal barbecue dust pit thing and where is it, what it's all about, and it sounds interesting. Yeah.
So the animal list was like an email list, and now it's mostly online on a Facebook group, on a private group. The list is not as dense as it used to be for a variety of reasons that I won't get into. But it's just Mark McYoung, who's written so many books about self-defense and violence, had an email list, and you had to ask to be put on that, and you had to shut up for at least a month. And there were many rules that you had to follow to get to the point where we would have a good civil discussion that could get heated. That is fine, but we stuck to the rules, like no ad hominem and this and that, and he who asserts must prove. Like in my Facebook group, You Are Not Aries, I have similar rules. If somebody can call you out, like, okay, I think you're wrong, so you made this statement, okay, back it up with sources and prove it. Like what is never done nowadays anymore, right?
Right.
So.
Right.
Really great group. I learned a lot, met many awesome people, made friends for life via the group. About I think it's about 18 or 19 years ago, they had the idea of doing a barbecue at Mark's place. So in the
Where
yard.
Is that in the U.S.? Is that the U.S.?
Yeah, it's in Colorado.
Oh, Colorado.
And,
okay. Yeah.
So we'd get together in the summer and just have a barbecue, and anybody who wants to teach would teach and do a class and so on. So it started, I think, as like a Friday and or Saturday and a Sunday, and now it's become like barbecue week. And I went a bunch of times, and basically it's the best. Mark describes it as such, and I think that's the best way to describe it. So it's kind of like entering the twilight zone for martial arts and self-defense. I think that's a good way to describe it. And he says, like, if you're used to being the smartest guy,
say hi.
Hi there. That's okay. Hi there. If you're used to being the smartest guy, the strongest guy, the fastest guy, the most experienced guy, the guy with the most kills on his record and so on, you will not be that guy in this group, because you will sitting right next to this guy who's actually much smarter than you, and you sit next to a rocket scientist, which is one of my Boston buddies, Justin. Hi there. He's one of the smartest guys that I have ever met. But he's also a guy who has extensive experience in jiu-jitsu and Western sword fighting. Right. So and I crossed swords with him. That was a lot of fun. So you got a bunch of people there, and then we would officially, it's a barbecue, but from the morning until like 3-4 p.m. there were classes, and I would teach a class. Somebody else, you want to teach, fine, you can do a class.
So it was just like a friendly exchange type of thing.
But there were the classes where you would teach something, and then obviously, like, you've got a bunch of people doing some training over there after the classes.
Cool, man.
Or some like you get talking, and like 2 hours later you're still talking. I'll just show you. I think what Kris mentioned, the year that I think I met him there, a friend of mine asked, can you do some pushing hands with my sons, because I'm teaching them martial arts as well. I said, sure. So I started doing that, and I think I pushed hands with Kris as well. I pushed hands with a bunch of people that day. So I don't remember everything, but I think what he wants to talk about, I think, is that after we've been doing that, because that was after the classes, and I was doing push hands with Kevin's boys and somebody else, And then Rory Miller came walking up, and I could see him sitting on a chair with a glint in his eye, like almost ready to jumping up and down. Can I play? Can I play? And he literally said that. Can I play? I said sure. So we started doing pushing hands, but the way that we also do it is that it incorporates punching and kicking and striking and everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're careful. There's basically no rules. But the idea is to just infighting, close fighting.
Yeah.
Right?
Clinch work. Yeah.
And again, there's punching elbows, kicking, takedowns, continuing on the ground, all that kind of stuff. And anyway, I remember when it started. I don't know how long we went, but at the end of it, there was like a whole crowd around us.
Yeah.
And somebody was playing with a violin, kind of getting the ambiance right. And everybody was grinning, and it was so much fun because usually when I train or when I do freestyle stuff like that, I have to hold back because I'm the heaviest guy, and usually the most experienced one. Obviously, Rory is extremely experienced and skilled, so I mean, he'd punch me in the face and headbutt me, and I would try to knee him in the balls, and I would do a hip throw and end up on top of him and put my fingers in his eyes and try to smash his skull on the ground, and he would sweep me, and so we would be all over the place. And at the end of it, I was getting really tired because I had just done about 4 days of shooting a video with Paladin Press, and I was jet lagged. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
And I'd been going all day, so I was getting a little bit tired, and eventually we stopped.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said that. Mark explained that. He said, "Now I know what it's. How did he say it? This is what you get when you have an unmovable force meeting unstoppable object." Something like that.
That's hilarious.
So that was a lot of fun. And just good natured. I mean, no egos involved, and he'd land a punch and I'd land something, and just everybody's chill. It's very rare for me to be able to do that kind of stuff because there's a large amount of trust. You have to trust the other person because you're.
Yes.
I mean, at one point, I can't remember if I think Rory swept me to the ground. We ended up on the ground. I ended up on top. There's a specific combat sanshu technique that I like to do there, and the end is that I grab the back of his skull with both hands and I put both thumbs in his eyes, and then I do tricep extensions.
Yeah.
So, and the technique is that we're in that pit, so it's just soft ground, so it's not really hard. But if you do it on a hard surface, on concrete or on a sidewalk,
what happens? Really hurt somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do the extension, you smack the back of his skull into the ground.
Yeah.
If he resists and wants to push back, he pushes his eyes deeper. My thumbs go deeper into his eyes, which makes him want to go back. Which helps me with my technique. So if you do that a couple of times, you can actually, it's a lethal technique in the long run. So, but he has to trust me that I'm not going to do it in such a way that I actually mess up his eyes permanently.
Yeah.
So, and I have to trust him when he puts me in a choke that he's actually going to let go eventually.
Yeah, of course.
Or that
There's
he
got to
ends
be
up
some
putting
control.
me in a joint lock.
Yeah.
That it's not going to break my elbow. So the trust level needs to be there, and the barbecue is one of the few places where you're so much surrounded by people who are very much badasses, where it's not a theoretical discussion about, doing violence, where it's intimate personal knowledge with, actually, if you want to break a guy's knee, use this kind of hammer because that works better. Don't ask me how I know. That kind of stuff happens. And then there's somebody else who used to be in the military and had really, really interesting experiences there, where or talking about firearms or actually shooting at people who shoot back at you, as opposed to doing that on the range, and all the things in between that. So a bunch of people with a lot of experience, and in many ways, I was the least impressive guy there, and that is not false humility. That is just a statement of fact. There were a lot of people there with so much more training and experience and knowledge than me. So I was always very happy when I could go there and train with folks and obviously, hang out with my friends.
That's cool, man. Yeah. No, I as you were talking about that, I'm thinking this was Mark's place, right?
Yep.
It must have taken him like maybe decades to formulate friendships like this, to bring like-minded people like that together. Because let me tell you, man, it was hard for me just to train with the people that I do now. Like it's kind of like it's like your high school buddies versus your colleagues at work. You know what I mean? Like you I don't know if you have the same experience, but high school friends are more or less, those are your friends for life type of thing. You know what I mean? Or even elementary school friends, like the people that you hang with for a small time. So like, quick question, like, so how long has this animal thing been going on?
Well, the animal list, it's not very active now anymore for a variety of reasons that are personal. But it's I think I joined 25 years ago.
Wow.
I think, and it was high volume. At certain points, it was like 150 emails a day that you would get.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that was back in the days when there wasn't as much email as there is now. But I mean, we had discussions that would go on for weeks on end, like every day, like writing. One of my best friends now, we met each other on the list, and we had this huge discussion about Tai Chi. People call it the Tai Chi wars, because we would not back down and go, no, you're wrong, and for this and this that. And it was like we're not cussing at each other, but it was getting heated on my part, mostly, not on his. And eventually the moderator said, like, guys, take it off the list. It's been 3 weeks. Shut up and go away. Good natured, but the point is that and Jerry and I are now some of the best friends that you can imagine. So the point is that for me, in many ways, it opened my eyes to, like, A, you're not all that. B, a lot of people are better than you. C, and that is fine. That is A-okay. Just because they're better than you doesn't mean that you're bad. And you don't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove anything. Let's just, learn from each other. And for instance, Lauren is the best example of that. We got to know each other via the email list. He asked me, would you want to write together? We started working together. He learned me a bunch of stuff, but he would ask me, like, hey, what do you think of this? Or how do you do that technique? And I would say, okay, this is why I do it. I didn't know that. Okay, interesting. Or, this is giving me trouble. What do you think about that? So he despite all, and at first it was very awkward. I was like, why is Lauren Christensen asking little old me for advice? Like, what the hell?
He sees a lot in you, man.
Well, I guess so, but mostly he still had that open mind, despite all his experience and training. He would still remain the eternal student to this day, and that is one of the things that I try to emulate. That I learned from him is that no matter what I think is right, no matter how good or whatever, whenever my ego gets too big, I like to think like, Wim, hold on. Take a step back. You're not all that. There's so many better people than you out there, and that's okay. That's okay. Just stay humble, keep on learning, and everybody's doing on their own path, and that's fine. What I see nowadays, what I mostly say is that, look, it's not for me, or I don't understand why they're doing that, or I wouldn't do it that way. I think it's wrong, but I don't really know. I don't train with those people, so I don't know why they do everything, but from the first glance, doesn't look like something that I would do. But who knows? Go ask them. I constantly get asked, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? It's like, I don't know. Or I say, like, from what I know, which is very little, this is my opinion. But you want to know? Go train with those people and see what you think.
Yeah.
I think that's more honest than just, thinking that. And again, I am not Ares, god of war either. So I don't know.
No, that is the best advice I think you can give to people, right? You just try it out and see for yourself, type of thing,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna end with a connection I made to Tai Chi. Tai Chi is alive.
Yeah, the thing that people forget is the name is Tai Chi Chuan. And Tai Chi refers to the yin yang symbol, and Chuan means fist, and that is how the Chinese typically will call a martial arts style. They call it blah 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 Chuan. So Chuan, and the fist of whatever. And in this case, Tai Chi being yin and yang, there is obviously softness, but there's also hard. There is slow, but there is also fast. And the fact that it is a martial art is a reality. It always used to be like that. However, in, let's say, the past 50 years or so, maybe even a little bit longer, in the West, it was kind of co-opted by this kind of more like the hippie kind of movements, yoga type people and so on, who just looked at the soft, slow part and said, this is awesome, and used it for that. I have nothing against that. That is perfectly fine. It's good for your health for a variety of reasons. However, and then we get back to differences and similarities, is there are reasons why you do every move in the form like that. That have to do with self-defense. And if you don't practice that part, how can you do it correctly? Because you don't know why you turn the hand like that or the other way. You don't know why you need to transfer your weight at that specific point in time or coordinate your arm movement with your weight transfer and hip rotation in a specific way. Why not do it that way, and why not do it another way instead of that way? But if you don't do the applications, you can't know that. So that is why I don't fault people for just practicing the forms and those aspects. My only point is that I am not interested in just that part. I want the whole thing, and that's why I've been training in Tai Chi Chuan for the last 25 years. And our style is called practical Tai Chi Chuan because that is what the journalist in Hong Kong called the former head instructor's style. They said because he was one of the only guys who would fight with or without weapons using Tai Chi.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. Listen, I am so grateful that you took the time to
My pleasure.
talk to me. I hope this is not the last. I'd love to bring you on again, and I'd love to collaborate with you if you're open to that on something in some shape or form. Well, thank you so much, Wim.
My pleasure.
Once again, we can find you on Wim's blog, you said?
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm doing online. I'm doing more online now than ever before. So I've got wimsblog.com. That is just my blog with a bunch of stuff. You'll find all my videos and books there. You can find links to that as well. I have a Patreon that's been going for 4 years that is mainly focused on self-defense. There's a little bit of more pure martial arts, but it's mainly about self-defense. And there's different tiers that you can sign into, from $3 to $5, a little bit more, depending on which level you sign up for. Every month you get new content. You get direct access to the archives. There's over 600 posts now already. There's a lot of stuff there. And it's thanks to my patrons that I can do a lot of the stuff that I do, like the podcast and everything else. Podcasts, my podcast is at Wim's blog. You can do it there as well. Or if you go to iTunes or any other podcasts places you go to, look up my name, Wim Demeere, and you'll find my podcast as well. MMA Formula, I mentioned that. MMAformula.com. That's where I do just mixed martial arts. Nothing to do with self-defense or traditional stuff. It's just mixed martial arts. And then recently, earlier this year, during the first lockdown that we had here in Belgium, I did a lot of work, making videos, and I launched online taichichuan.com.
Oh, cool.
So online taichichuan.com, and that's basically, I teach a class here in Belgium, twice a week in Belgium on Tai Chi. Everything I would teach you there is going to end up online.
Nice.
So that's the whole curriculum with one exception, and that has to do with the way that we teach, that we don't put that online. But that's like all the forms, all the self-defense applications, push hands, weapons. It's all going to be there. The theory, I just did two videos that I put online 2 days ago, where it's about theory and strategy and tactics of self-defense in Tai Chi. So that's going to be that's my contribution to the art. It's going to be a many years long project, and every month I add videos to it. So
Cool.
the entire curriculum of what I teach in Tai Chi will be there.
Awesome.